Please enjoy this encore presentation of The Way Home.
Welcome to The Way Home with Laura Smith, the show that brings you wonderful guests, helpful advice, and uplifting stories. The Way Home. Live inspired. Here's your host, Laura Smith.
Wow, today's show is jam-packed full of such interesting and impactful people who are literally changing the world, one child at a time. And in the case of my author, well, one brigadier general at a time. So exciting today. I'm grateful to have on the co-founders of 5 Star Life. It is a program in northern Indiana that hopes to be covering the whole United States eventually, but having children in the middle school age, more or less, come to learn these guiding principles for their lives, these values, and incorporate them in their lives through learning, through doing. And it's called 5 Star Life, truly changing how kids think of themselves and then live their lives in the world. And then we have a great author, part of our reading series. It is called No Soldier Left Behind: The Life and Times of Brigadier General John G. Kulhavy. Now, this book is very special. First of all, the retired Army Brigadier General has done just an amazing story in his life, not only while he was in the military, but beyond, and all he does for the world. Truly, talk about living a 5-star life. He is one. And this book is a biography on it. And Don Steele is the one who wrote it. Don is the one doing the interview with us today. And he has a lot to say. He has been friends with the Brigadier General since college. So no one knows him better. And the book is absolutely phenomenal. All coming up today, plus good news with our one and only guru of good news, Jim Cleefield. It's all part of The Way Home. I hope you enjoy it. I know I am ready to rock and roll with it. When we come back, we'll be talking first with 5 Star Life and the co-founders, Mia Schaefer and Seth Moss.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Way Home with Laura Smith. Here's Laura.
So one of the side benefits, I would say, to having this wonderful new radio family in northern Indiana, southern Michigan area, is that I have met some of the most extraordinary people doing really the most amazing things out in the world. And because of that, and our radio station being affiliated with this great operation called 5 Star Life, and actually doing a radiothon for them. I don't know how many years. We're going to find out now in just a couple of seconds. But because of that, I have gotten to work with the people there, understand more about what they're doing and changing the lives of young people, which I pray one day is all over this country. This program, 5 Star Life, if not the entire world. I have the co-founders with me today, Seth Moss, Mia Schaefer, who have not only been people I've been looking up to for the last 2 years and learning about 5 Star Life, but as the most fantastic human beings as well. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. It's an honor to be on your show, and thank you for coming on our show here a couple weeks ago. And our staff mobbed you, wanting selfies and autographs. And so
oh my goodness!
Thank you. You're very gracious.
No, thank you. That was a lot of fun. Yes, one radio hand washes the other. We're both on each other's show because we're both on the same station in northern Indiana, 95.3 MNC, and it's your show was one of the first shows that I heard on the station before I even started working there, doing the morning news program. And I was amazed by it. First of all, I loved your voices. And then when I heard what you were talking about, I said, oh, my gosh, I feel like this is something the whole world needs to hear about. How did I not know about 5 Star Life? And then I got to meet you and we did the radiothon with you. Now tell us, how many years have you guys been doing this radiothon with 95.3 MNC?
I'm pretty sure last year, I think it was 2010. So I think it was last year was the 13th because we had a COVID year. So I think it was 13. I think number 13.
That's amazing.
I'm going with that.
You're going to go with that. I think you're right, because we were saying this year when we did, we try to raise money for this. It's a not-for-profit, but it is one of the most extraordinary programs and opportunities for middle-aged children in public schools. One of the most incredible things I think that could be offered. My whole life I had wanted to help kids on some level, and particularly in that age group, because they, to me, seem to be like the most vulnerable. But here comes 5 Star Life. Tell my audience, because I know they hear you on here all the time, but this is also airing in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and it's also in Greenwich, Connecticut, so out on the East Coast. So for anyone who doesn't know how fabulous you are and what you do, please tell us.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So in a nutshell, 5 Star Life, the name, what do you think of, when you hear 5 Star, what comes to mind?
Points of light, important points, I guess.
Okay. And sometimes people think of like a 5-star rating, right? So like,
oh, okay. Yeah, that too.
Like the best of the best. And that's what we believe kids are, that they're born with this innate light, talent, potential. Like I've never met a kid that didn't have 5-star potential. But unfortunately, we started 5 Star 20 years ago, unfortunately, because so many kids are slipping through the cracks. They're not seeing their potential. So we began to do some digging to find out why are kids underperforming to the tune of 7,000 kids a day back 20 years ago. 7,000 kids a day were dropping out of high school. So we began to ask the question, why are kids slipping through the cracks, dropping out, throwing their lives away, making life so hard, and creating this perpetual cycle of poverty and, prison, all these negative things. And we looked at research and found that at the core of a person's success or failure is this operating system, right? The thing that we call mindset. And so we have spent the last 20 years dedicating ourselves to building curriculums and programs that reach kids at their core. So not just throwing Band-Aids on the problems, but getting to the root issues in kids' lives. And we've just seen a huge difference. So over 70% of our kids raise their GPA. We've got programs that work with kids in detention on probation that we're seeing like an 89% success rate at keeping them out of the system. And we have sports programs. We have a 350-acre training facility where we're at 5th and 6th grade, giving kids the opportunity to start to learn trades and careers and skills, hands-on learning. And so as a result, their grades are going up, the behavior problems are going away, and they're starting to realize I am 5 Star. So that's kind of the nutshell version of who we are, what we do.
Oh my gosh, I love that. It gives me goosebumps just to think about that. And we'll talk about your huge property out there that is changing lives, Camp Summit. So beautiful. Mia, what are the 5 Star qualities and values that these children are being able to access within themselves via your work and your program?
Sure. We have 5 core values: respect, integrity, sacrifice, courage, responsibility. And all of our, that's the core of what we do, like our curriculum, it all is based on those 5 core values. And we started with 2 other, we've changed them over the years, but.
Yeah, we started with like 10.
Yeah.
I mean, the first year we had like 10.
10 Star Life.
Yeah.
And our CEO, Jim, said, Seth, we're 5 Star. We got to narrow this thing down. And so we have a couple other things that are very much a part of our curriculum, like excellence and servant leadership. So we have 5 values, but we weave these other things in. Everything kind of fits under those 5 Star values, though.
It's interesting because now that I've done these 2 or 3 radiothons with you guys, and I hear those words and I think, oh my gosh, these are things that are going to be life changing for these kids, and obviously have been. Sacrifice is the one that always trips me up, and I'm always like, I don't think I get fully what you mean by sacrifice and how to integrate that into one's life or see that as a potential point for a young person. What is sacrifice to you as the co-founders of 5 Star Life?
Well, we define sacrifice two ways. Number one, giving up something now for something better later on, delayed gratification. right? That's really important for kids to learn that, especially in the technology screen-ridden world they live in. They want everything fast and now in dopamine hits. And then the other way we define it is giving up something that I want to help somebody else live a 5-star life. And that's where we tie in things like servant leadership. And it's funny, you say, it's a hard one to wrap your mind around. We try to break this down because there's all these values that we hear swimming around in our language that if you don't drill down and understand it, it doesn't have the meaning that it can in their lives. That's why we developed this curriculum. And I was talking to a group of kids today, and I said, what are you learning out here at 5-star, and what's impacted you the most? And a kid said, sacrifice. I said, explain that. So, well, I'm giving up my time after school that I want to play video games or be on Netflix or TikTok. I'm sacrificing a little bit of time after school to get my work done, so then I can just relax and enjoy knowing I did my work, and then I can do all that stuff knowing I'm good, and I enjoy my life so much more. So it's so cool that, and this is a 5th grader.
It's amazing because I think too, Laura, when you first asked that question, sacrifice almost is negative. It's like, like, how could you make them do that? But when you explain it this way, I mean, these kids are growing and, oh my gosh, their lives are so much better.
in the visual we give kids is you think about climbing a ladder, right? You think about living, if I'm on the rung number 1 or I'm on the ground floor and I'm not where I want to be in life. Sacrifice means I've got to give up the level of comfortability I have right now with 2 feet on the ground. And if I want to climb up there, I've got to take a step. I've got to leave this step behind, and I've got to rise. And so these illustrations, kids start to identify them, and it makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so grateful because now I feel like I totally get it. All of them make sense to me and beyond. So, Seth, you're known as Coach Seth, and I love that so much of your program is based around these wonderful videos that you do, and the kids get to really, they all feel like they know you by the end of it. And you're in many schools at this point. How many schools, Mia, is 5-Star Life in at the moment?
Oh man, that's a good question. We're just looking. I don't know. I'll say this. I hate to quote anything unofficially. So I know last year we had somewhere around just under 80 partners. So between public schools, and then we also serve like different boys and girls clubs, and some nonprofits. So. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's awesome. So, I mean, it's exponential, and obviously every year it's getting bigger and bigger. And so you have these videos and you're talking directly to the kids. You really serve as a role model, and yet you also come across as almost like their best friend, but not in the way that, when you hear these days, you got to be a mom. You can't be their best friend all the time, but you really do come across. I think these kids look to you as a friend, not just someone they look up to or have to, be mindful of and be afraid of or whatever. They look towards you as a true role model, but as a friend as well. And I think that's such a winning recipe for some of these kids to start adopting these principles.
Well, I mean, we use the term coach intentionally because everybody wants to have that coach who believes in them, that sees them at their current level, but has higher hopes for them. And their whole goal is, this is where they are, but I've got to coach them up to the next level. And every kid, at the end of the day, they need adults to look them in the eye. And what they want to see in our eyes is belief, right? Love, acceptance, and belief. They'll take the challenge if they know you love them and you believe in them.
Yeah. It's really moving and touching. Your Camp Summit, I was very fortunate. You guys gave me a tour, like I felt like I had the tour of a celebrity or something, just because I got to go around this cart and go into all these areas, including your horse barn and what is going to be eventually your new center, your life center. And it's just all so inspiring, but it's on this, is it 250 acres? How large is Camp Summit?
It's over 350, actually.
Oh my gosh. I undercut you by a whole 100 acres.
You didn't see some of it, Laura.
I must not have seen all 350 acres, but I will tell you this. I saw the elk how many elk do you have?
We have 6 now. I don't think when you were out, we had 2
I think you had 2.
Summer. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
6. So
you have these elk and then you have this lake or large pond for fishing. You have this equine area with horses. And these kids are getting sometimes opportunities, a lot of them from the sort of inner city of Elkhart and stuff that may not ever really get an opportunity to be in the great outdoors like this with up close and personal with animals. How are you using the animals in your 5-star program that seems to be more about conditioning your quality of your character, but you're doing it with the great outdoors, with nature and with animals and such?
Well, can I talk about a specific way we do this? We have a program called Innovative Learning, 5-star Innovative Learning, where we partner with schools and they bus their kids out to Summit 1 day a week for 6 weeks each semester, so 12 weeks over the course of the year. And this week marks the week number 6. They're just wrapping up, and me and I have had the privilege of going out there and just talking to kids, talking to teachers, just to find out, okay, what's happening? Are you learning? Are you enjoying it? Do you wish you were back in school? Teachers, has this been tough to get kids out here? Are they learning? Is this a waste of your time? Because these are kids that are behind. They're behind. So, and every kid and every teacher just said, this has been so powerful because what we've done, our program team takes state educational standards and aligns all of our equine program, nature program with elk, and with whether it's a medical program with educational standards. So they're still learning, but they're learning hands-on kinesthetically. Mm-hmm. So guess what? We followed the research and we just been challenging schools. Kids actually learn better this way when they can learn hands-on by seeing and doing. And every teacher, every kid just said, I'm learning so much. And teachers were just so thrilled because that learning carries over into the classroom when they're not at 5-star.
Laura, we were blown away. So we walk up there, these groups of kids, they're at archery, they're at in equine, in the barn. And Seth asked, what have you learned? Time management. I learned respect. And they're going on and on and on. And they're actually, I'm just absorbing everything that, Seth teaches on that video. And I was blown away because, half the time kids are like, you think they would be like, nothing. These kids were so engaged. And so it's working.
Yeah. When I was on the tour there, and I was teasing by saying the celebrity, I just meant because I was in that golf cart. I loved it.
Celebrity.
He is. Coach Seth is definitely a celebrity for sure. And we were going up there and there was a whole group of kids that were fishing. They were actually fishing with these fishing poles and everything. And they were getting excited. They were screaming, one, because one was getting a bite, and they were screaming. They were excited. And these, again, looked like kids that probably didn't have a lot of time in the great outdoors and doing something like that, and yet learning while they're doing it. I think it's great. Rudolf Steiner, I think it was him that started all those Waldorf schools a couple hundred years ago. And that was the whole premise of his schools as well. It was learning through tactile learning and learning through creating things, making things, even sewing, things like that. They had all these different ways, and they still exist to this day, these schools. And you're right. All the research shows that children need to get out of sometimes the classroom and a book per se, or maybe just a lecture, and go into doing something that really forces. They must make their minds just really grow in so many ways. If you guys had, now I know that you're in this area, the northern Indiana area, and Michigan, your 5-star Life campus, Camp Summit, is up in Sturgis, Michigan, or Union, Michigan, I should say. What is your goal? And for anybody listening to the program today, because you want to grow into other communities, is that true? Other schools, other states even? How big do you want 5-star to go? And if you had anyone that was listening that could maybe offer some type of support for that, besides just, financial donations, which we do at the Radiothon, what is it that you're looking for going forward? What is your main vision?
Well, great question. First of all, we want to canvas America. We want to change culture. That's truly it. If I could put our mission into a sentence, we want to change the face of education, of sports, and of culture. And we're doing that by addressing core issues, their mindset. And so we have scalable curriculum programs where we train educators to implement this in the school. And the schools that use this, they see their discipline and behavior issues go down. They see their attendance go up, which truancy is at the top of every educator's list across the country right now. So, we're getting it done, and it's very affordable. So there's a couple ways people can get involved. One, you can make a donation, right? That you can give money. That helps us grow resources and expand. But you can also be a liaison and just connect with us. Go to 5starlife.org, hit the contact us button, and just have a conversation with us. If you have a school or a nonprofit in your community, we're ready to partner and we're ready to scale. Like, we could do this quickly.
Absolutely. Going into Fort Wayne, I would imagine that would be a huge step as well. And even, because you're being heard now in Connecticut, too. I mean, it seems like it's vast in terms of how many kids you could reach with this program. It's not just for one part of the country.
Well, when we started 20 years ago, we're based in Elkhart County, the city of Elkhart. And the previous superintendent, sat in front of a group of donors up at Summit and proudly announced, this is about 6 years ago, but he just said, when I came into this district, the graduation rates were in the 60th percentile. And they're now 93rd percentile. And he said, before 5-star, we were under 60%. Now we're in the 90%, and 5-Star Life has made the difference. And so, that's a strong statement. And so if there are schools or educators or moms and dads or grandparents that are listening, your voice matters. And just a simple introduction to your school leaders could build a bridge that you could be a catalyst for transformation. Same thing with detention centers or probation groups. We're working with those as well and seeing great impact.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And not to mention, if you just read up on 5starlife.org, if you just read the whole concept behind it and learn what it's about, you could even just incorporate it into your own family. Think about it. Right. I mean, right? I mean, these core principles that you teach, these values are just... They're game changers, I think, for so many human beings, for so many young people, and for families as well, and their parents too. As I've learned from doing the radiothon with you guys, we hear from some of the parents who have helped walk their kids through 5-Star Life, and they've been impacted greatly too. It's a ripple effect. It touches everybody. So I truly, truly recommend. I am very grateful and excited about the opportunity to be partnering with you guys to hopefully have some future input on the performing arts area of 5-Star Life. I know that you're looking to maybe incorporate that into some of the learning there, and being an old theater major with the emphasis on old, just kidding. I'm really looking forward to hopefully being able, because performing arts changed my life forever. And it still does to this day, because I consider radio as performance art in itself also. And so I'm excited about that. So there are ways in which people can get involved with you. And I know that you welcome all of it, and so grateful to you. 5starlife.org. Is it the letter 5 or the number 5? Or
either, actually. You can go either way. Perfect.
Makes it easy. Well, Mia Schaefer and Seth Moss, I thank you so much, not only for being on the show today, and you have your own show on 95.3 MNC every Saturday. Is it 11 a.m.?
11 a.m. Yes, ma'am.
And it's a wonderful show. You learn something every time you hear it, and it gives you hope. Gives you hope for the world when you listen to both Mia and Seth and the guests that they have. Thank you so much, and thank you for everything you're doing in the world. It's a great honor to even just know you and watch you, and now hopefully be a part of what you're doing at 5-Star Life. Thanks for joining us today on the way home.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Feel the same way, Laura.
Love you guys.
Love you
Love
too.
you.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Way Home with Laura Smith. Here's Laura.
So many books, so little time, and wonderful, wonderful books. Some of them novels, others are biographies and are nonfiction. And I'm always especially interested in the nonfiction. I love hearing real stories of real people, because in my book, which I haven't written yet, I think that the stories of human beings that live and breathe and are amongst us are of the most fascinating. And so with us today is a biographer. Don Steele is here. He has written a book in a legacy series of books, I should say. And this one has a very familiar quote that many people in the military and beyond would know. No Soldier Left Behind is the name of the book, about the Brigadier General John Kohavi, who has made a name for himself on and off the battlefield and in many, many aspects of life. Great to have you today, Don. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So, No Soldier Left Behind. Well, that is something we have all heard, and I think we probably pretty much understand its premise. But I know that there's a lot more that goes into that can actually be the legacy of one's life, like John Kohavi. Please tell us what that means to him and why the book was named that.
Well, John, it carries through more than his military experience. When John was an early teenager, his father left the family in pretty tough straits. And so John felt left behind. And so when he was in the military, that saying, since he flew 300 combat missions and was shot down twice and had all these kinds of things happen in the military, one of them was picking up casualties, that people that had died or been severely wounded. And his theme was, it takes 20 people to get out one, we'll do it. We'll do whatever is necessary to get these people out of that circumstance. So
how interesting that he took a personal aspect of his life where this is the resiliency and beauty of, I think, of so many human beings. But he took something that was a difficult challenge in his life, being so-called left behind by his own father, but then used that as something that would become his legacy, that he wouldn't leave a soldier behind and the dictum of his life. I think that's incredible. And you said over 300 combat missions?
Yeah, 300 combat missions, and most of them were under fire. They were. He was shot down once where they ended up in a crater, and he was injured himself, but he had North Vietnamese and South Vietnamese on opposite sides of the crater shooting at each other, and he's got to pull people out from under the rungs of the helicopter, and it was severe. He was severely wounded himself, but didn't know that. He had to actually pull a person up through the crater to safety, and it was a great story, but a very heroic guy. And he was a roommate of mine in college for a semester. So we knew each other. We were in the same fraternity. And I never would have predicted in college the military career or anything else. When he was a senior in college, he wasn't crazy about the curriculum he was involved with. And he had been in ROTC, which was required at that time. And he decided to extend his college career for another year and get that second lieutenant designation and go into the military. And it turned out to be a great choice for him and for America.
Wow. I often think of that, the bravery, the absolute selflessness of what it takes for somebody during a time of war to step up and say, oh, no, I need to be there. I need to help. And then, like you said, then to be able to do such things as, pull people from their deaths or even people who've already passed and get them out of harm's way even further and to bring them home. I mean, yeah, what is that like? When you're a senior in college, he's probably just a good old buddy and you guys are running around some of the same circles perhaps and just doing things that regular college kids do. And yet, did you have any insight into his character at that time, that he was someone special?
he always had 2 or 3 jobs. And his jobs were, ranged in a great thing. He had to hitchhike back and forth from Skidway Lake, which is a little community in northern Michigan, to central Michigan, which is Mount Pleasant. He didn't have a car for a couple of years, and so he was hitchhiking back and forth. And he'd wear his uniform quite often because he'd get picked up easier if he was wearing a uniform. But he always had 2 or 3 jobs, and he was very creative. One of his jobs is being in a fraternity house, and he was president of the fraternity for several semesters. And he would tell you, mainly because nobody else wanted the job, but he always sought the leadership roles. And so a couple of things he did, people were embarrassed to buy condoms. So because there's usually a lady behind the counter, so he bought like a gross of condoms and he would sell them for a quarter, and he paid for a semester of school.
Are you serious? Oh, my goodness. Serious. Well, yeah. What is it? Invention is the mother. What is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. That's what my father always said.
You got it. He was always finding ways to make money, and
wow.
He had to. He had to.
Yeah, imagine that. Can you imagine, first of all, hitchhiking, A, and B, having that be your only mode of transportation to get back and forth to college? It really takes a special kind of person. And so, all right, so then he was in the ROTC there. He leaves, he goes off. Now you go your separate ways. Did you stay in contact all those years throughout the time he was in the military? Were you yourself in the military?
I was not in the military. I had a full ride scholarship at the Air Force Academy. And then they found out at the very last minute that I was severely colorblind, and you can't be an officer or a pilot, and probably a gentleman. So I lost my scholarship, and so I ended up going to Central Michigan undergraduate, and that's where I met John. Did my master's at Ohio State University, but no, I didn't go in the military. John went in the military. We didn't see each other after college for probably 35, 40 years. And I gave maybe a little less than that. I gave a speech at Merrill Lynch where he went after the military, went into Merrill Lynch. We'll talk about that a little bit. But I gave a speech there. I'm a psychologist, and I gave a speech. It was mandatory attendance. John was in the audience, and when he came up and he had got his general uniform, I was like shocked. I had no clue that he had, less than 1% of the thousands of people in the military become a general. So that was quite an achievement, and his military career was a highlight, one of the highlights of his life that has several highlights.
Yes, so that apparently was one. Everything that he accomplished there, like you said, to become a general, a brigadier general, what it must take, the kind of fortitude it's hard to imagine. Just me as an aside, my heart goes out to you. Here you had a full ride scholarship to the Air Force Academy. Yeah. And then you were not able to do it because of being colorblind. Well, but life has an interesting way of taking each one in their own paths. And now here you are together again with your schoolmate and writing the biography of his extraordinary life. And that must be wonderful in many ways, that you can continue in that sense. And also you have such an inside view into this man's life, because I know he is highly acclaimed. And we're talking about John Kulhavy. He is the brigadier general that did all these valiant tours into battle. And when he came out, was also very, very successful, apparently, in civilian life, which I know that there's a lot of challenges for many who come out of combat to maintain and be able to re-enter into just regular civilian life. He not only did that, but he succeeded greatly in that as well. Tell us a little bit about his many other tiers of his life that he excelled in.
Okay, when he got out of the military, I pointed out that he was always finding ways to make money because he had to. When he got out, he decided he wanted to get into the financial investment field. He didn't know anything about financial investment, but he wanted to get in. So he got hired by Merrill Lynch and pretty much started out and was drifting a little bit because he went to his leadership and said, look, I would like to form a team like I had in the military instead of me working as the Lone Ranger. I just I think we could run more hours. We could have somebody in charge of doctors, somebody in charge of business people, small business, whatever. And to make a long story short, he went to see Don Regan, who worked for Ronald Reagan. You might be too young to remember all that, but with Ronald Reagan, and Reagan was the head of the Merrill Lynch organization, corporately. So he went to see him with the blessing of his bosses at Merrill Lynch. They said they weren't going to, that's not the way we do things around here, but if you want to talk to Reagan, go ahead. And so he went to see Reagan, and Reagan was a warrior himself. He'd been in the military. And he basically gave John his blessing, and then John's part of that. He became nationally recognized and the top person at Merrill Lynch in Detroit, and became really, really successful. He went on to donate almost $10 million to Central Michigan University, his undergraduate school. Well, he was hitchhiking to go to school there.
Right. Can you imagine?
He got buildings named after him and classrooms named after him. And he built a ROTC moniker in the front because ROTC is not as big as it is now. I mean, it isn't as big now as it was then. Mm-hmm. So anyway, he became a very successful financial advisor. And then he became, I think, he did a lot for his area. They have a bunch of fraternity brothers, I believe, started a hunting camp in northern Michigan, a place called Kirin. It was about 600 acres. Now it's 1,000 acres, but John owns it alone now, but they started out together. And that hunting camp has been an entertainment center for John. He loves to see other people having fun. And he lived in that area of the north where they have to drive to Saginaw or Detroit or Pontiac or Grand Rapids or someplace to participate in things like fairs. So he on his property, he built an amusement park. And it's the second largest amusement park privately owned in the state of Michigan.
Wow.
And it's real inexpensive. He loses money on it every year. He never makes a dime. He has to spend money on it but he loves to see these kids. He's got go-kart tracks, Ferris wheels, all kinds of stuff. And it's remarkable. And then he bought a bunch of military stuff. He's got a helicopter on the property from Vietnam, and he's got tank. And he had a blind guy drive that tank one time. You actually drive the tank when you're up there, but he just loves to see people have fun. And he and his wife, Carol, who's a real sweetheart, by the way, they have a great marriage. They do things together and they entertain. And they love to have groups. I go up there with the Detroit Lion, former football players, and I play guitar and sing. So I'm kind of the entertainment sometimes, but I don't go there for that reason. I go there because I enjoy the camaraderie of the people that they bring in, and they bring in people from all walks of life. And they have a lot of hunting in the hunting seasons. You know, 'cause they got a lot of rough property up there too.
Sure. My guest is Dr. Donald Steele, I should say. I'm informalizing him, but he's a Dr. Donald Steele, who has written a wonderful biography, No Soldier Left Behind, about his friend and a very highly acclaimed, everything from brigadier general to one of the number one at Merrill Lynch at some point, and obviously brought his ingenuity and fascination with doing things his own way. And then now he gives back to the community with this amusement center. I know he's a philanthropist as well. How do you pack so many lives? And both of you, I mean, it sounds like you both have these really, truly extraordinary lives. How do you pack so much into one life, especially one that had some difficulties in the beginning, back in I would imagine, in the 50s when his father left the family, abandoned the family basically. And he was left to truly become a man overnight and put himself through school and in the military over those 300 missions. That's a kind of ilk or substance of a person. We don't always see that all the time, but maybe it's more often than not. But it's when you hear about people like this, that are almost larger than life, and they pack so much into a life, and it could have easily gone another way. He could have been one of those that said, feel sorry for me. My dad left the family. It made me grow up, and I felt abandoned, and now I'm going to go, drown myself in sorrows and so forth. He didn't do that. He did the complete opposite of that and continues to do it this day. May I ask how old he is at this point, John Kulhavy?
John just recently had his 80th birthday, and He had a wonderful party. Arnold Schwarzenegger talked to him. He's met a lot of through the military and through his life. He's met a lot of celebrities, but he thought he died once in the military. He had gotten the Silver Star. I think that's the right honor. It's a big honor. I know that. And he had been up all night, so he went to bed and he was laying down. And Charlton Heston visited the facility.
Oh, and he was
so
sleeping.
He said, I want to see the guy who got the award. So he walked in, and John said when they woke him up and he looked up and saw Charlton Heston, he thought he had died.
And he thought he was in a movie or something.
No, here's God,
Here's God, exactly. Oh, my gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's extraordinary. I mean, this is, these are actually the kinds of people, and yourself included, I would say, Dr. Steele, that movies and books are made of. And truly, people who make such a mark in life and continue to truly bless so many, because it sounds like he gives a lot away. He's made a lot, but he gives a lot away and does things for humanity in his own way when he can. And it's, these are the true heroes of life. And I'm so happy for you that you got to write about your friend, but that you still enjoy this rigorous friendship. It's a beautiful thing. Should we all be able to, have that as our legacy?
John, finally, he has invested in a lot of people in businesses. He calls himself a venture capitalist, but I think he's more of an angel investor, if you know the difference. He never wants to manage, but he's bought golf courses, and he bought a donut shop for a guy, a college student that wanted, and now he's going to expand that donut thing into a big thing nationwide and all this stuff. But John is always willing to invest in people and ideas and things that he thinks creates a better world for individuals or for the world itself. And he's not done. I mean, John is 80, but he's going to be around for a while, and he's continuing to contribute in so many different ways. I'm proud to have him as a friend,
Well, I'm sure he is as well, as he allowed you, his buddy from college, to be the one to write about the major milestones of his life, and that he enjoys it with you still to this day. I mean, 80 is the new 60 as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think so. And I would be amiss if I didn't say that John's, it was his second marriage, but his marriage to Carol has been a rock, because they complement each other very, very well and enjoy each other, which is a nice thing. And they enjoy entertaining. It's a good thing. John has a beautiful place in Cape Coral, Florida. He's got that place in White Lake, Michigan, where that's the first house he bought. And he's also got that camp thing up north. So he's got a lot of interests, and he uses it to entertain other people, watch other people have fun. That's what he's really about. And
he sounds like really the all around Renaissance man. And it sounds like he has been pretty much forever. And you've been there right along his side. That's really just, I think, what we need in life for our children and just for us ourselves is to have people that we can look up to. We can hear their stories and know that they exist, to know that these aren't movie characters. These are actual human beings that have done something extraordinary with an ordinary life and made it truly spectacular. I thank you so much. This book is for people who like to read the true stories about the true heroes, people who have made a difference in life. It's called No Soldier Left Behind. It's by Dr. Donald Steele, and it's about his friend, Brigadier General John Kulhavy. a wonderful book that you can find. It's in the Legacy series. How many books are in the series, Don?
We just finished the 6th, and we're working on 3 more. It's available on Barnes and Noble. It's available on Amazon, and it's available in multiple forms. We got hardcover that I showed you, the soft cover. It's even on what do you call it when you Kindle?
Yes.
So you can get it in multiple ways. And John bought a whole bunch of them himself to give to people, military groups.
Yes. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think what an inspiration. No soldier left behind wherever fine books are sold. Dr. Donald Steele, thank you for sharing this beautiful story of this wonderful man and yourself as well, who happens to be the same. Thank you so much for being on the way home.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Way Home with Laura Smith. Here's Laura.
Well, I'm totally inspired by all the guests today, and I just think about how many people can turn their life into what the general did by maybe learning when they're young. Like 5-Star Life is putting these kids through these wonderful programs and learning. It is inspiring. It is the way of the world. We've got to get them while they're young so that they can live the life that they were intended to. Jim, you're one of them. You're also very successful. And what I love about you is you're so positive. You go out and you're always cheering everyone on. So it makes sense to me that you've been the appointed guru of good news since day one on the program. Do tell us, what do you have?
Well, this first story, LJ, I think it's really appropriate because I was so impressed by your first guest, Mia and Seth, and what they do. They would be impressed with this girl out west, LJ, and I'll tell you why. This girl, she's 12 years old, and she not only has a creative mind, she has a passion for play, and I'll tell you the reason why, LJ. This, by the way, is in Clearfield City, Utah. Not Clearfield, by the way. Clearfield, with a C, okay? This 12-year-old girl only goes by the name Rosilli. She saw that there was a playground that had been built at a nearby park in the city, and she noticed that the equipment was really more for the older kids. She really wasn't impressed by it. And she got to thinking, there really should be a place where her younger sisters, younger kids, really kids of any age, can get together and really have fun and play. So you know what she did? With her creative mind, she went right to work. Like any good architect, she decided to design her own dream playground, which is supposed to be built at a place called Bicentennial Park. That's the place where it was going to be. This is a while ago. And, she spent many, many hours designing it, just, what she wanted it to look like. Well, with the help of her mom, she decided to go to City Hall to speak to a guy named Eric Howes, who's the director of community services. He took a look at this, and knowing how much time that she spent on this, he was so impressed with the design, right down to the angles and the descriptions. This is a 12-year-old girl. She's going to be a rock star architect someday. I just have that feeling right now just reading this story here. Anyway, he was so impressed that he decided to bring her into the process because we're in the process of building a playground at Bicentennial Park. And after all these meetings that she was in on from the ground up, I'm talking about soup to nuts from the very beginning, they incorporated her designs into this new playground, which has just opened recently. And not that long ago, I think days ago, she was at the ribbon cutting ceremony with her mom and was just so impressed. And the reason is because she wanted a playground for kids of all ages, not just her sisters to enjoy. And now her dream has become reality. So when we talked about Seth and Mia and living your dreams, she is a perfect example of that, LJ. 12 years old, which really shows you're never too young to go after your dreams. And for Roselli, she's just an absolute rock star with this. And she's going to be a great architect someday, if that's what she wants to do.
Yeah, she's already living a 5-star life. Wow, that is so impressive. Good for her. And I just love that when young kids are allowed and given the opportunity, how great of that town that they gave her the incentive to, why don't you come up with the design? I think that's absolutely beautiful. And wow, what a legacy. You're right. We'll be reading about her in days and years to come, no doubt.
Yes, no doubt. And we have time for another?
Oh, yeah, please do.
Okay. Well, we've been hearing all the sad stories of what's been going on with Hurricane Milton, particularly in Florida. I've got a lot of friends out there. I've been keeping touch with them. They're all doing pretty well. No major damage. It's a real concern for all of us. But there's always a human side that comes out of this, or shall we say a furry friend side to this. Because in Palm Beach County, there's an animal shelter that already was overcrowded before Milton even hit. They had about, 200 cats and dogs who were homeless, and they're really just, they're waiting for emergency animals to come in case, let's say, they get displaced, right? Well, they did something. They made a plea to the community in West Palm Beach, where this shelter is located. This is the Animal Control Care and Center in Palm Beach, for the community to step up to the plate and adopt, either for a permanent home or foster, some cats and dogs, so that way they can open some space to bring in any emergencies that may come in. Well, guess what? The response was overwhelming, LJ, because as soon as it came viral, there was a huge crowd outside the animal shelter right to the building, and everybody just came in and they took a dog or a cat, whatever they could do, because the shelter also said, if you do this, we'll provide the food and supplies, you house them. So really at no cost to the individuals. So they really came forward, and you know what? That shelter is empty now because all of these dogs and cats have found a home somewhere in Palm Beach County, and now they can rest easy knowing, now that the storm is behind and they're in the process of recovery, which has been well reported, that hopefully whatever dogs and cats come in, they have more room to take care of them until they find their next home.
Oh, thank goodness. This is heartbreaking, and I'm so grateful there were so many people that stepped up to the plate to not only help the victims and the families, but to also help the animals. Thank goodness for that. Well, Jim, thanks as always. And for everyone listening, I appreciate you listening to The Way Home. Every week, you can always hear the podcast. Once again, it is posted the same day that you're hearing the program, and you just go to The Way Home with Laura Smith. You can even Google that, The Way Home with Laura Smith. And Federated Media podcasts are going to pop up right there, but it's playing wherever podcasts are to be had, on Apple, Spotify, you name it. So The Way Home with Laura Smith, available to anyone that you'd like to share it with, or maybe even hear it again. It did that much for you the first time. Have a beautiful week, everyone. We love you so much. We'll see you next time. I'm Laura Smith.
Podcasts by Federated Media.